It's Christian with St. Augustine TV. Yes, we're back at it again. In the interest of civics, I'm sitting down today with a county commission candidate running for seat number 2, District 2. Will McMullan. It's good to meet you.
Pleasure to be here.
We had to reschedule because the last time we had technical difficulties.
We did.
So thanks for bearing with us.
Absolutely.
It's good to see you again.
It's worth it to be here.
Let's get right into it. Why run for St. Johns County Commission, Seat 2, and why now?
Well, honestly, like I said before, I'm a native Floridian. I've lived in St. Johns County since I was 2 years old. Don't blame me for the 2 years that I lived down south. I've seen the changes. Some of them good, a lot of them have been bad. And I've always wanted to give back to my community. So a few years ago, I found out about this thing called precinct strategy online. And it encourages young people who want to get involved in politics and make a difference in their communities to get involved. And they say the best way to do that is to become a precinct committee man or committee woman in the party that you're registered with. So I'm a registered Republican. So I got in touch with the Republican Executive Committee, and I was voted in as precinct committee man for my precinct 202. 202, represent. And I did a lot of community organizing and understanding the issues of the people who live here. And after that, shortly thereafter, I was actually elected as chairman of District 2 for the Republican Executive Committee. So now I'm in charge of all the precinct committee men and committee women of the entirety of District 2. And I found out that there's this election coming up, county commissioner, where I can make even more of a difference to fix the things, the so many things that are wrong and have been ignored in our community. So I decided that I would step up, and now was the time to serve. It was a great opportunity.
Okay, tell us a little bit more. Who is Will McMullan in just 30 seconds to a minute?
Oh God, 30 seconds to a minute. I don't know if I can do that. I'm a son of St. Johns County. I'm a native Floridian. I'm somebody who cares. I'm somebody who, instead of pointing out problems, trust me, I talk to the community. People point out problems all the time. Politicians, instead of pointing out problems, should be pointing out solutions. I'm a solutions guy. I have not one, but 3 master's degrees from one of the best universities in the world. I'm a family man. I met my wife in my first week of freshman year at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. And I want to make a difference. I think for too long, the people and the issues of St. Johns County have been ignored, and I think it's time to bring some change to that and make a difference.
Right on. How does your experience prepare you for approving road projects, budgets, parks, and zoning?
Okay. Well, like I said, I'm a native Floridian. I'm a son of St. Johns County. I grew up here. I've seen the changes. I went to public school. I went to Bowles. I graduated from Bishop Kenny. It was then that I decided to take the big leap to go across the ocean to Scotland, where I attended the University of St. Andrews. I got master's degrees in environmental science, business management. Then my girlfriend at the time, but now wife, decided that she had not had enough postgraduate education. So she decided that she was going to get yet another master's degree. So what does a young man in love do? I had to go get another master's degree. So I got another master's degree in international finance. After that, I went to go work on Wall Street. I did investment banking, hedge funds, high frequency trading, you name it. I did it. I was very good at it until one day that I'll never forget that changed my life forever. I was sitting in my office in the financial district, just short walk from the actual stock exchange. And I was eating a bowl of Hale and Hearty soup with a piece of rye bread, and my mom called me and she said, "Wilson, are you sitting down? Do you have a second?" And I said, "Yeah. I've been diagnosed with breast cancer." And my father passed away when I was in high school. And so my mom, she was my rock. She got me through that. She's my family, so I would do anything for her. And I did what any good son would do. I made the proper arrangements, and I moved back to St. Johns County, as quickly as I possibly could. And I'm happy to announce that over 15 years later, my mom is still cancer-free, thank you God. And I've lived here ever since, on and off for work projects. But since working on Wall Street, I've worked in technology, I've worked in real estate, I've worked in other financial sectors. And right now, I currently work in consumer packaged goods. Every single day, I deal with Fortune 100, the world's biggest retailers and manufacturers, solving problems for them, writing contracts, getting things done, providing solutions. If there's anybody who's qualified for this job, it's me. And I don't mean to boast, but I think I'm more qualified than all the other candidates in the election put together. So I think all of that, my business, my education, and the fact that I'm from here and I understand the issues, and I'm a good listener. I like to listen to people. I think qualify me for this job.
Good. What I like is that you seem to have a sort of a more generalist background, meaning you haven't just been a specialist in your life. You understand a broad range of conceptual ideas and how they might all fit together. Because I believe the world needs more generalists, not just specialists. You know, I believe education and work has become too specialized so that we have people that can't understand how broad things work.
I couldn't agree more, especially when it comes to organizing and creating a community. You need to not have a microscope. You just need to open your eyes, look around, and listen. You need to understand how all the things work together to build a place that we want to call home.
All right, let's get into it.
All right.
Let's get into development. You know, this election is being framed as, you know, anti-growth or slow growth, anti-developer versus pro-growth in developer pockets candidates. You know, I was sitting down with a current county commissioner, Krista Keating-Joseph, and do you know what she told me? She told me that there are 35,000 homes that are already in approval that haven't been built yet. 35,000 homes. And what she told me next was even more surprising. There is 40 million square feet of commercial space already approved. I mean, that's more than like downtown Jacksonville. I mean, that's 40 million square feet of commercial space is huge. 35,000 homes, to put that in context, that could accommodate the growth, the projected growth for the next 2 decades. So this is already approved. So I kind of find that this framing of pro-growth versus anti-growth is kind of moot at this point. The growth is coming. It's already been approved. And if you're angry at pro-developer commissioners, that time was 15 years ago. That time was 20 years ago. Now we have to pivot. Now we have to figure out how we're going to manage this growth. How are we going to deal with this growth? The growth is already coming. So if we know all of this growth is coming, it's coming down the pike. We actually even know where it's going to happen because the approvals are there. So what should we actually be focused on at this point?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for pointing that out. What a lot of people don't realize is that the growth that people are upset about was actually approved 20 some odd years ago, and there's nothing we can do about it at this point. So when they say we're going to slow the growth or stop development, they literally cannot do it. They can't. It's just a political ploy that they try and rely upon people's ignorance of the subjects. They like to keep people ignorant, which I think is not a way to run a political campaign.
Well, isn't part of it, I mean, right now we're seeing all the effects. I mean, you drive down the street every day, there's a new clear-cut lot, there's a new this. I mean, it's crazy. And I think everybody's seeing the effects of all that now, and they're angry. And so folks are using that to capitalize on, politicians are using that to capitalize on, to access that fear, that anger, those things, and say, hey, we're the champions of that, when in fact, that issue is done. We now need to figure out how we're going to manage this stuff. We're going to have to start looking at things like routine approvals, the stuff that nobody even thinks about, but is the stuff that we're seeing as we ride along Route 1 or County Road, whatever. You know, that's the stuff that I wish people would start focusing on, is that all this stuff that's junking up our street, our commercial corridors and stuff, that just sort of mindlessly going through approval.
Going back to your issue and how we got here in 2008 and all that, if I was to ask you what percentage of the ad valorem tax revenue came from all sources other than residential development, so all industry, all commerce, all business, all agriculture, everything, what do you think it would be? 40%? 50%? 56. It's 13%. 13% of all our ad valorem tax revenue comes from everything except housing development. Housing development accounts for 87% of all.
That's where the money is.
People wonder why developers have so much power. It's because they control the purse strings. We rely on them to keep the lights on and pay the bills.
It's you know, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome.
That's exactly right. So what we need to do first off is change this systemic imbalance. The state average, by the way, instead of 13% from all other sources, is 35. And who wants to be average? I think that we should absolutely be above average. So how do we do that? We do that by diversifying our economy, strengthening our economy, fortifying our economy for the future so that we're not in a situation like we were in 2008 that led us here. In 2008, because we were so heavily invested one side and skewed into residential, Our economy was completely destroyed, and so was the county budget. We had to lay off over 30% of our county's workforce. And these big developers, they had us so in a very weak position, so to speak. I could say some expletives, but it was not good. So our county commission had to make some bad deals with some bad people because they had to. They were in a vulnerable position. And that's really what led us into the situation we're in today. So in the future, what we really need to do is diversify those non-residential sources of income. We need to bring in healthcare. We need to bring in technology. We need to bring in advanced and precision manufacturing, and we need to bring in professional services. Not only does that fix the fiscal and budgetary system that we're in, but it also provides opportunities. So people here can afford to live, work, and thrive. Not just the retirees and not just the super wealthy, but kids just graduating from high school and college, young working families. St. Johns County should not just be an exclusionary enclave for the ultra wealthy and the retired. St. Johns County should exist for everybody, and we need to be open for business.
So District 2 is kind of an interesting district. While it encompasses some of the new growth areas up north, it's also the district that has the most amount of agricultural land in it. Every candidate has mentioned preserving agricultural land, which is different than rural land. If you were given a choice between developing farmland that is already being used intensively, water hungry, laden with pesticides, producing runoff, versus developing pristine forest, woods, or rural land, which one would you choose?
Well, first off, I'd just like to say that I'm an American. I'm a conservative, and I believe that property rights are fundamental, not just to why this country was founded, but it's fundamental as to what makes us the greatest nation in the world. So if a farmer wants to sell their land, they're more than welcome to do that. That's within their rights. What the county commission can do is decide what happens to that land afterwards. So when you say, should we clear cut a bunch of trees to build a new development or a new factory, or should we use land that's already developed? I think obviously you'd want to use the land that's already developed. But at the same time, you have to make sure that whatever that development is fits in with the culture and the community, and that it's not just completely changing. It's not like an alien outpost, or a foreign colony. So you just have to make sure that, and that's the role of the county commission, is to make sure that any growth and any development fits within the character of the community. And that's what a good commission does.
I want to continue here. If farmland is so important, what type of incentives can be offered to these communities to preserve farmland? And are these communities opposed to develop, or are these areas, might these local areas actually be able to benefit from development? And has anybody asked them?
Well, I can tell you that I have. I've spent a lot of time in Elkton, Hastings, Flagler Estates, and a lot of people down there, they feel like their voice hasn't been heard.
Yeah.
They moved there to get away from the hustle and bustle and the city and the traffic and all those things, so that they can go out at night and listen to the crickets and the owls and the bats. And you can hear the bats too. There's little chirps. So to get back to your question, they feel like they haven't been listened to. They love the culture of where they live, but at the same time, what they need more than anything is economic opportunity, especially young people out there. Mm-hmm. They can't find jobs where they live, and if they can find jobs, they're not up to the standards that they need. Not everybody wants to, like my opponent said, needs to work entry-level jobs for their entire lives. No, we need to strengthen and reinforce the the education to training to employment pipeline, and provide opportunity down there so that people can afford to live, and they don't have to move away, and they don't have to underutilize their potential, so they can live out the potential that they need in the type of community that they want to live in.
You mean not every young person should have to become a landscaper?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So things like light industrial projects, stuff like that, where people who want to become engineers, that want to work with their hands, they can absolutely do that, and they can live where they want to live.
Yeah. Let's talk about land conservation. The state offers considerable resources and matching funding for land conservation. Is there an area that comes to mind that you'd like to see the county work with the state to conserve?
Everywhere, honestly. People move to St. Johns County because it's such an amazing place and such a beautiful place. And a huge portion of that is our natural beauty. So anywhere and everywhere we can conserve, we need to. And we need to prioritize with the most sensitive and the most ecologically important areas. Just a few years ago, the county spent $2.5 million a year on conserving natural land, which I don't know if you've noticed, that isn't a big portion to begin with. But our county commission voted to reduce that to $500,000 a year. You can't even buy a house in this county for $500,000 a year. And that's the whole budget for the county for preserving ecologically sensitive or culturally important land.
Meanwhile, they can get matching funds from the state by the way. I mean, the state will pony up 75%, up to 75%. That's missed money right there.
Well, one thing I will tell you is, who do you think doesn't want lands protected? It's the developers that we rely upon for our revenue. They want to be able to build wherever they want to build, because these environmentally sensitive, these environmentally beautiful areas, that's where they can build the best houses and get the highest prices. I mean, it makes sense from them. So that's why, I mean, developers are going to develop. That's what they do. That's in their purpose. Their purpose is to develop. But it's our purpose as a county commission to make sure that development does not destroy the place that people want to live in. You know, development, and my philosophy is that development, if it doesn't improve the quality of life for the people that live here, it shouldn't be approved. Development should uplift. It shouldn't diminish our quality of life.
I talk about, I think we should be conservation first, development oriented. You know what I mean? Like we're always thinking about conservation even while we're developing property or developing land.
I couldn't agree more. And a huge portion of that is actually enforcement. You know, we do have laws on the books about trees need to be protected and you need to replant more trees, but that we actually just cut our inspectors. So we have these laws, but we can't enforce them because we don't have the budget for inspectors.
That's funny, because I mean, I owned some property and I was trying to do everything right for it. And I actually had somebody from the county go, you know, we don't actually like look for this stuff. It's only when neighbors complain.
Yeah, that's entirely right. And I don't know if you've seen when they go in and they clear cut these huge areas and then you see them plant these little saplings in row after row after row. A lot of times they're actually in buckets. They don't even actually plant them. They put them there temporarily. They know nobody's going to inspect them. And then somebody comes when they build, you know, whatever they build a few months or a year later and just plops them up and moves them to the next project.
I tell you, part of me grieves every time I see one of these large live oaks get cut down. I mean, that's happening around me. I mean, my area right now, it's different than your area. I mean, it's just being, I mean, just in the last 12 months is when development has really become apparent close in around the city. I mean, it's kind of amazing how fast it's going. And that's even with slow the growth candidates in power. So, I mean, our district has a slow the growth candidate in there.
Like I said, political slogans, not solutions.
Right.
That's it.
As a follow-on to that question, you know, the state will help buy conservation easements for farmland. That's not the same thing as buying the land, but it's basically creating an easement so that remains farmland. It's a lot cheaper than to buy the actual land straight up. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I would like to, if people really do want to conserve this farmland, I'd like to see people pursue that type of activity if they really want it. You know?
We absolutely should.
You know?
We absolutely should.
All right, let's talk about the city-county relationship. This one's really important to me because this is kind of why I'm doing all of this, to be honest with you. To be blunt, it appears to me that the county commissioners do not give a shit about St. Augustine City. The relationship the county has with the city could be likened to that of a working girl and a pimp. I'm not kidding. I'll say this again. Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. When it comes to tourism, the county receives the occupancy tax, commonly known as the bed tax. And they use occupancy rates as their main metrics. So you can see where this is going. This encourages Airbnbs. This encourages hotels to be built because they're getting all that money. You know, in fact, in the last 10 years, if you've watched St. Augustine City, it has turned from a viable community where people and families lived and is now just a sea of Airbnbs. That is in part due to this type of thing. Now we're building cheap, architecturally insignificant hotels all around the downtown core. You know, so can the county and city better cooperate, especially around issues of tourism? Do you believe there are overlapping areas where residents' quality of life and the tourist experience overlap? Do you think the Tourist Development Council and the various tourism agencies can evolve their missions to help improve the quality of experience for everyone?
Absolutely. And I cannot relate more to what you're saying. I was speaking with some city residents just yesterday. And did you know that it wasn't all that long ago, but there were 3 grocery stores in the city of St. Augustine?
No.
That you could just walk 5 minutes and go grab your milk and your eggs or whatever else you needed?
No.
Now there's not, guess how many there are now? 0. There are 0 grocery stores in the city of St. Augustine. So if you want to talk about the changes and how they're not benefiting the people that live there, I can talk all day, trust me. And people who live there will.
No, it's wild. I mean, other places are saying, oh, we need more schools, we need more schools. Yet Catalina's downtown, because there's less than 8% of the population is under 18 years old, is struggling to sort of stay open. I mean, it's crazy. And this has a lot to do with this expansion of Airbnbs and pushing tourism. And it's the county, by the way, that's in charge of all the tourism marketing, that pushes over tourism for Nights of Lights, that brings in these large events. And then the city is left sort of hustling to figure out how can we get some licensing deals. Its main source of revenue is parking. So that's why they're building a parking garage. And that's just going to put more and more traffic downtown. Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcomes.
I could not agree 100% more with what you're saying. I mean, it's the TDC. So they get their money from the bedroom taxes, from the...
They guide this money. Yes.
They guide this money. Then it goes to the county, it goes to the state. And then instead of the money for the TDC going back to actually help these things, all it does is advertise them more. So it makes the problem worse without giving the funding to actually fix the issue and make things better.
And some of it's applied to the little pet projects. Unfortunately, those pet projects are not in the city.
That's right.
I mean, that's right.
So the county reaps most of the benefits from these great events, these wonderful events, but then the city is left to pick up the bill, and the city's struggling already. So I believe that there is currently, and you can ask, I can talk to people from the county, you can talk to people from the city, there is a conflict in between the city and the county. And people need to break bread. We need to work together. We need to have more dialogue. I mean, I'm a Christian. I believe in it.
It is somewhat of a conflict, but I mean, really we need people to collaborate. But the issue with collaborating between the county and the city is one issue. But I don't see how that can happen when the county can't even collaborate with itself.
Amen.
Amen. So anyway, we're getting a little passionate here. Let's bring it down. A value of mine is beauty. When we talk about planning, we often focus on roads, utilities, and development, but we rarely talk about beauty. Do you believe local government has a responsibility to create a more beautiful county? If so, what does beauty mean to you, and what would you do to preserve or enhance it?
Number one, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's one of the foundations of government, especially at the county reviews process, is to make sure that a development uplifts and actually improves the quality of life for the people that live here rather than diminishes it. People are not interchangeable economic units. We do not want to live in soulless gray cubes and eat the slop. That's not what people were born to do. That doesn't make people happy, and it doesn't build community. So I think absolutely the county should do more. I'll give you an example. There's a town in Mississippi, just north of Jackson, called Madison, Mississippi, and they've had the same mayor, Mayor Hawkins, now for I think 40 years. And one of the things that she did is she took one of the poorest counties and one of the poorest states, and she turned it into one of the most beautiful places in the world to live, because she put these regulations in place. Said, if you're going to build in our county, you're going to build it with the architectural standards that uplift rather than diminish the people that live here. So that's exactly what the county needs to be doing more of. So when we approve these projects, I believe that there has to be an actual line item that says, is this architecturally relevant? Does it fit with the culture, history, and heritage of our community, or does it not? And if it's just another soulless gray cube, absolutely not.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of soulless gray cubes going up around, especially strip malls and stuff that are just being, it's terrible. And Mississippi's interesting because, their school ranking has skyrocketed recently. This is a poor state that normally is the bottom of everything, and suddenly they've got some leadership there, and they're skyrocketing.
It's called the Mississippi Miracle, and it's actually what I want to do to St. Johns County as well. They say we have the best school district in the state, and we do. But that doesn't mean that we can't be better. That doesn't mean that we can't be better funded. So what they did in Mississippi is they had a very proactive county commission and a very proactive chamber of commerce, and they went out and they recruited these major industries to come and set up shop and build these, low intensity, low polluting factories. And the tax revenue that they got from those factories, they then funneled into the school district. And that is what caused them to not just be the lowest, to go from below the lowest. They were actually lower than some of the territories. They were negative state in terms of education. Yes. And now they're in the teens.
Yeah.
And it's because they had a county commission that knew what the issue was. The issue was funding. They had a workforce. They just needed economic opportunity. So they found a solution and they brought it. And that's what I want to do here. I believe that we should have economic opportunity in St. Johns County as well.
Yes. Okay, let's talk solutions. What's your biggest positive vision for the county?
So as I said before, right now, only 13% of our ad valorem tax revenue comes from non-residential development. The state average is 35. And I don't want to be average. I want to be superior. I want to be the best of the best. So I think we need to bring in healthcare, we need to bring in technology, we need to bring in precision and advanced manufacturing, and we need to bring in professional services. Doctors, lawyers, accountants, bankers, all that sort of thing.
So if we're doing this, you're kind of telling me that we're no longer necessarily going to be in the developers' pockets anymore, or we don't have to be anymore.
Well, that's exactly right. It's liberty. It's freedom. It's freeing us from the shackles of the developers to pay our bills. So instead of having to clear cut 15,000 acres to pay for our county budget, we can build 200 acres of light industry or 200 acres of technology or an office park, things like that. Absolutely. That's how we stop the overdevelopment, we fund our schools, and we give the people that live here opportunity. So it's not just the retirees, it's not just the super wealthy, but everybody can come and live and work and thrive in St. Johns County. So they say, oh, we already have the best school district, we already have the best this, we already have the best that, and they're fighting over slices of the pie. Well, I just say, why not just make a bigger pie? Nobody ever talks about growing the pie, they just talk about how we can increase our slice. And I think that's the wrong mentality, 100%. I'm a businessman, I'm a solutions guy, and that's what I want to bring to the county commission.
Name 3 projects you'd champion.
100% the airport, the St. Augustine Airport. Okay. Well, if I was to tell you that there is a place in the United States of America in this day and age, in the year of our Lord, 2026, that still built an aircraft from nose to tail, would you believe me? Probably not. And if you did, where would you think it would be? Somewhere in Washington, with Boeing, or somewhere in Texas, or maybe somewhere in the Midwest? No, it's right here in St. Johns County, and it's at our local airport. Northrop Grumman builds the E-2D Advanced Early Warning aircraft there.
The Hawkeye!
The Hawkeye, one of the most advanced airplanes in the world, providing excellent jobs, careers for people who want to live, work, and thrive in St. Johns County. For so long, they've been wanting to expand their industrial base there, but for some reason, the county commission hasn't had the leadership or the political will to get it done. That would be one of my champion projects. I think we need fewer houses and more Hawkeyes.
I'd like to see a few commercial flights too, to be honest with you.
Why not? Absolutely.
We used to have some commercial flights. This area is growing so much. Why shouldn't we have something to at least a hub airport to Atlanta or DC or someplace? That way people could actually get somewhere from here.
That's right. For another project, I don't know if you've ever heard of Cape Canaveral on the Space Coast. Well, we are perfectly positioned right along the I-95 corridor to be a facilitator and logistical hub for that. So we could have advanced manufacturing and advanced services to come and build right here in St. Johns County that would go with that growing space industry down in the Space Coast. So that would be the second thing.
Supply some sort of something for it?
Absolutely. People don't understand. You know about contracts, you know about federal procurement. How many different contractors and things go in, how many different widget makers go into building a big project like a space, an aircraft, a spacecraft? Yeah. So absolutely, we need to cooperate more with Cape Canaveral and the Space Coast. And I would empower our Chamber of Commerce to do more. I feel like they've had their hand ties for too long, and I think we need to let them loose. They need to. It's what happened in Mississippi with the Mississippi Miracle. That was primarily driven by very, very driven and capable chambers of commerce, and we need that here in St. Johns County.
What's your biggest idea that nobody else is talking about, or did you just already talk about those?
Nobody else is talking about economic development. They're talking about slowing the growth and stopping development. But as you said, there's nothing you can really do about that. But now all you can do is make sure that growth works for the people that live here, not the big developers. So what you need to do is you need to bring in economic opportunity, you need to diversify our tax base, and you need to create a more robust, more sustainable, and more viable economy so that we don't end up in a situation like 2008 where the developers had us over a barrel and took advantage and caused all these problems that we're having today.
I was a real estate agent during the last housing crisis, and I sometimes wonder if we're already oversubscribed, meaning there's already so much development in the pipeline that we're going to end up with sort of abandoned, if there's an economic downturn, if there's a softening of the real estate market, that we end up with, abandoned sites, we end up with abandoned buildings, bankrupt developers, and all the stuff that we saw during 2008. We are living in bubble times right now. The stock market bubble, the housing bubble. This could pop at any time.
Exactly. That's why we need to have a more robust, more varied, more diverse economy that isn't just reliable on one industry or one sector. We need to grow it into a lot of different industries and a lot of different sectors to better, insulate and fortify ourselves against those risks of one industry popping or bursting.
Okay, I hear you on that. Okay. All right, let's talk about the north-south county divide. This is something that I've noticed, and I don't know, some people don't like to admit that it exists, but for a long time, existing residents in established areas have heard the sucking sound of their tax dollars leaving to finance new infrastructure in new development areas, mainly to the north and to the western parts of the county, while their areas are receiving little maintenance and infrastructure improvements. Giving an example, one of the candidates mentioned that St. Augustine Beach hasn't had any meaningful infrastructure improvement in decades. Yep. How long must these residents sacrifice to accommodate new growth? These areas, too, need champions and attention. What say you?
I could not agree more. Like I said before, 87% of our ad valorem tax revenue comes from these developments. So what's the county's attention going to go to? It's going to go to these big developments because it has to keep the lights on. And in addition to that, a lot of these developers, they're doing the bare minimum that they can to give money to the county to fund these infrastructure, schools, projects to keep up. So the county has to put its attention there. And it's wrong.
But the county's essentially chasing money, that future money, while the current guys or the current people are the ones financing all this stuff. And it's important to note, they're financing this stuff. This stuff is all being financed, So this is going to future generations. Are the people paying for this stuff?
That's exactly right. And so we're paying for our budget with these housing developments, but the housing developments increase the stress on our infrastructure. They increase the stress on our schools. So it's just kicking the can down the road. It's perpetuating the problem rather than fixing the problem at the source, which is too much of our tax revenue being from residential sources. And that's going to become increasingly of an issue if this homestead exemption comes into case, because we're
going to talk about that. But if you want to talk about that right now, I mean, I see a perfect storm coming between, this growth, this infrastructure need, possible housing downturn or economic downturn, and a serious dent in the revenue due to this, the homestead, I don't know, ad valorem expansion. So we're going to need. We can't, I think the days of business as usual are behind us. We're going to need some real creative problem solvers who can understand complexity and really can deal with these issues, because I think we're going to have to get creative.
We're gonna need all hands on deck. The last thing we need is a commission that's not functioning. We need to be a well-oiled machine. We're gonna have to, look after all avenues, all opportunities, and at the same time, we're gonna have to potentially start looking at cuts. If this goes through, some liberal estimates put it at $200 million in budgetary revenue could potentially be lost.
And that's out of a $1.9 billion budget.
Well, our operating budget is only $400 million.
Oh.
Yeah, the 1.9 billion, we actually have a flow-through budget. So we include things in our budget like utilities, public works projects, grants, stuff like that other counties don't. So it makes our budget actually look bigger than it actually is. Wow. So the things that actually fund, our police department, our transportation, stuff like that, it's a little under $400 million.
Wow. And it's a potential cut of how much?
200.
No. Really?
That's some estimates.
Wow.
But I think that we should be more prepared than less prepared. We need to have all hands on deck because this could be catastrophic.
No, it could be. And I mean, we cannot have what's going on right. Anyway, we'll get to that. Where does your moral philosophy come from?
It comes from Jesus Christ. That guy. I mean, to put it as simply as possible, I'm a Christian first, I'm an American second, and that's I believe in Christ and I believe in the founding fathers.
Mm-hmm. I've actually wanted to hear somebody say that. Okay, let's talk about the political climate. In my foray into St. Johns County politics, this is what I have found the most disturbing. I have heard St. Johns County politics described as dysfunctional, even as an embarrassment. It is clear, at least for some, that the Holy Spirit is not running through them. The opposite. I would call them divisive, petty, and very, very mean. There are those whose specialty is a character assassination and bullying anyone with a different opinion. I've been the recipient of such. Perhaps what the county commission needs most is an exorcist. If you get elected, you certainly will be the target of this. How do you plan on dealing with this?
I deal with it every single day. In fact, one of the first interviews I did in the start of my campaign is I came out and called the climate toxic. We all live in the same community. The commission shouldn't just work for one side or another side. It should work for all the people who live here. Unlike other commissioners or candidates who say not everyone has a right to live in St. Johns County, or that our schools shouldn't be wasting their time training students to have jobs in the upcoming, new high-tech economy, I believe that our commission should work together for the greater good. And maybe that's just my Christian faith. Maybe that's just my understanding of America and what makes it great and what has made it great for so long. But we need to realize we're all in this together. And we do have very, very, very toxic elements here. And I think it's destructive. And especially with all the risks that we talked about earlier, it's the most dangerous possible thing we could have right now, because we need a commission that's as functional as possible. We don't need lawsuits. We don't need constant bickering and arguing. We need to be focusing on the issues, on the solutions, and how to fix things as quickly and as effectively as possible. So it's an unfortunate thing. And I will tell you, I've talked with people who come from New York that have been involved in politics, people who have come from DC that have been involved in politics, and they were shocked by just the level of toxicity and just nastiness right here at the local level.
Yeah, I was a U.S. court reporter for Congress for years, for a year. I've lived in Washington, D.C., the city. I've lived in Baltimore City. I've never seen anything to this level. St. Johns County takes dirty politics to a level that is kind of unimaginable.
And you know who suffers in all that are the people who live here.
Yeah.
And it's a tragedy, and it's something we need to fix.
I just don't know how county commissioners can work together to find solutions if that during the week when they're not meeting, they're engaged in character assassination, or their proxies are, and then how do they get together then to come up with to understand problems and to figure out the best solutions? I don't think that that's possible.
It's not possible, and they can't. And and I've been saying that we need to work more closely with the city of St. Augustine, because we all do better when when everyone wins. The city and the county. And how can we even break bread and mend our relationship with the city if we can't even mend our relationship with each other? If we can't even come through with one clear, coherent voice, it's just not possible. And it's a tragic situation, but it's something that I absolutely deal with every day, because I'm the target of these attacks as well. And as I'm sure as we get closer to Election Day, the attacks will just continue to increase. I, on the other hand, will continue to do what I've always done, and not attacking other candidates, but focusing on the problems and the solutions to those problems. Because I actually have a platform. I'm not just talking about political platitudes that are spoon-fed to me by political action groups and special interest groups. I have a plan, I have a clear vision, and I know how to fix the problems we have here in St. Johns County. And at the same time, uplift the people who live here instead of just one special group or one special identity.
There are people running clean campaigns.
There
are. And I appreciate that.
I want to be a part of the solution, not part of the problem.
We kind of mentioned this, complexity. There appears to be a perfect storm of rapid growth, infrastructure strain, slowing economy, and a possible significant reduction in revenue. In my opinion, St. Johns County can't continue to operate at the same levels. The status quo ain't gonna cut it. Why do you feel that you are the person who can successfully navigate these very complicated problems?
Oh, for one, I think my resume speaks for itself. I am more qualified than all the other candidates put together. I am by far the most qualified candidate in the field. And that's not to say anything about the other candidates, but we're here to work a job, a full-time job. We're not here just to be representatives of special interests or big corporations or developers or who this. We're here to represent the people. And so as to represent the people and get the job done, we need to put the most competent, the most qualified, and not just that, but like I said in the Chamber of Commerce, the most, let's just say, pure candidates, people who are from here, people who care about the issues here, people who will listen to the people, not just their backers, but the actual people who put them in office, and come up with solutions and working together rather than just constantly attacking each other to win political points.
Mm-hmm. I would like to see a more intellectual side to our county. An intellectual to me is somebody who thinks about and analyzes and critiques and offers solutions to the normative problems within society. That is the definition of an intellectual to me. We need people who can understand complexity, who are able to process it and are able to then turn around and figure out what the best solution sets are. And not just listen to, take an advisement of, subject matter experts, consultants, and whatever, but they themselves can understand the issues, So anyway.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, we're getting through this. Leadership. Tell me about a time that you admitted that you were wrong.
Oh, I do that every day. Just ask my wife. Honestly, if you can't admit you're wrong, then you'll never deal with the issue that made you wrong to begin with. So I'm a servant leader. I follow our example of Jesus Christ, and like I said, and also the example of our founding fathers. And if you can't take criticism, if you can't take people criticizing you or saying that you're wrong on issues, then how can you be sure that you're right on the issues to begin with? I think you should be able to defend your ideas. Otherwise, they're not ideas worth defending.
Yeah. I always keep open the possibility that everything I know could possibly be wrong. Meaning, aliens could come down tomorrow and everything that I thought about life just, what I mean? And that's important if you're trying to really figure out things, is you're able to figure out the devil's advocate, you're able to understand the other side. You don't just go half-cocked and think that you're right on everything.
Absolutely. I will say that I'm definitely my biggest critic. So, yeah.
You and me both. Tell me something that you have changed your mind about in recent years.
I won't tell you something I've changed my mind about in recent years, but I'll tell you something that I've changed my mind about on the campaign itself. I came into this campaign, affordability is one of my primary concerns. Things are too darn expensive, and we need more opportunity. So I've been listening to Tallahassee, I've been listening to the political talking points, and they said, well, let's end property taxes now. And me being a guy who doesn't like taxes to begin with, that's what founded our country, no taxation without representation. I said, yeah, gung-ho, let's end all taxes. But through the process, talking to people, getting better informed, I learned that we can't just get rid of property taxes. Because if we do that, then we get rid of our autonomy, we get rid of our sovereignty, and we'll basically be begging for money from people who may or may not have our best interests at heart. I believe that local communities should be governed by local people, bringing local solutions. So if we just eliminated property taxes, we would be begging Tallahassee for money, and we may have administration that's hostile to our ideas or hostile to our community. Or, and there are examples of this, I won't name any names, but recently you may have a county commissioner or a member of their family that goes out and publicly attacks someone in Tallahassee, and then suddenly money that we needed for projects doesn't get funded and disappears. So we shouldn't rely on other people for funding. We should be able to fund ourselves. And through that, like I said, I believe in tax reform. I believe that we should be able to lower taxes, but this isn't going to happen overnight. It's something that we do in stages. And what we do is by taking that 87% of our ad valorem tax revenue that comes from houses and bring it down as much as possible. So the tax burden isn't on the people, it isn't on the houses, but it's on the companies. It's on the corporations.
Mm-hmm. Can't we all get along? I was recently accused of being too kumbaya because I believe that we need to take a more positive solutions tone. And there are just people in this county who believe you just have to focus on the negative all the time. You have to be negative. You have to be attacking. And they see virtue in that somehow. And I'm like, that's not how you get to positive outcomes. I don't know how you go from super negative and you end up with enlightened outcomes. I just don't believe that that's possible. Anyway.
No, and I agree with that. There are lots of things to be negative about in this county. Look at our infrastructure. Look at our traffic. Look at, our natural lands getting destroyed. Look at our school budgets and the fact that schools are getting built. And by the day they open, they already have trailers in the back because they weren't planned right. There's a lot of negative things to focus on, but that doesn't mean you have to be negative yourself. We can't ignore our problems.
And you know what? And if we stay negative, those things are actually only going to get worse. People think that being negative is going to help prevent any of that stuff. That's actually the wrong attitude. It's by working together and identifying what the problems are, again, parsing the problems, and understanding the solution sets. And you don't do that by attacking people and denigrating community. Community, and this is something I really don't like, is that if you express an idea that is different than from some people in this area, it's almost like they're trying to suppress your speech. Freedom of speech is an important thing, and they're trying to intimidate you to the point where you can't even express an opinion anymore. How is that good for community? Community is a group of diverse individuals with diverse ideas, being able to share them and allow a certain level of vulnerability. And you can't be vulnerable if you're scared of being attacked. You know what I mean?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it comes from a position of weakness. They don't have solutions. They don't have any policy. So all they can do is focus on the negative. That's it. Trust me, I hear enough problems from the people. I don't need to point out the problems. They know the problems. What they want are solutions.
Yes.
And that's why I'm running. And that's what every single commissioner should be running on as well. And it's sad that we have people running for county commission that don't have solutions, that just criticize and are so negative. And you'd have to question why they're even running.
I have found during this that people are light on solutions.
Yeah.
I have found that to be true. Personal. What are your top 3 favorite books?
Top 3 favorite books. On Liberty by John Stuart Mill.
Great.
Absolutely one of my favorites. Obviously, I'm going to have to say the Bible. It's a given. And number 3, I'd have to say with the baby on the way, is probably Little Toot and the Loch Ness Monster.
Good. You're the first person to say the Bible, by the way.
No. Mm-hmm. I thought that'd be a given. That'd have to be your first one.
I was surprised.
Wow.
Anyway, tell me a mistake that you learned from.
A mistake that I learned from. All right, I'll tell you something. And this is, I think that in the past, I have trusted people a bit more than I probably should have, especially politically. And as I've learned more about politics is, you think that people go into public service to actually serve and make a difference. And maybe some people, maybe a lot of them, start out that way. But as I've learned more and I've got to meet more people, I've come to see that a lot of politicians don't necessarily get into politics to make the world a better place. It's about power and it's about control more than anything else. So I think in the past I've trusted the political system and the people who operate in it a bit more than I should. And I'm not going to say that's going to make me jaded because I'm not that type of guy. I'm a positive guy. But I'm a bit less trusting of politicians than I have been in the past.
Mm-hmm. Corporations want profit. Government wants control, and politicians want power. That's a simple razor in my life. Whenever I'm trying to understand things, I'm like, okay, that corporation wants profit. Oh, the government wants to control me. Oh, that politician wants power.
Couldn't say better.
What's your biggest hobby? Got any hobbies?
Sorry. My biggest hobby, honestly, is just because we live in such a beautiful place, St. Johns County. I think I'm a bit biased because I grew up here, but I think it's the most beautiful place in the world, is getting outdoors, going to the river, going to the beach, going out in nature, going to Guana, going on the Matanzas, getting out in God's green earth and getting to experience the gift that we have of living here. So anything outdoors, I'm absolutely obsessed with. I also love to read. I used to be real big into city simulations.
Me too.
Really?
SimCity?
Oh, SimCity and City Skylines, the whole 9 yards. So anything where I'm designing and I'm building stuff.
I actually used to think that in order to become a city councilor or a county commissioner, you should have to pass, creating a successful city on SimCity. Because that way you can understand all the things that go into it. If you raise the taxes too high, it turns into the hood. If you do it too low, it's kind of amazing. If you don't put the infrastructure in the right place, everything begins to dwindle. Since I learned a lot from city planning by playing SimCity.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Yeah. Who's your favorite historical figure?
Favorite historical figure.
Other than JC.
Other than JC. Favorite historical figure. I really like James Monroe. I like the Monroe Doctrine. I think that, what he did getting the imperial powers out of the New World so that we could have, freedom to roam and be able to grow on our own was a huge thing to forming, the nation that we know today as the United States of America. So in terms of U.S. politicians, I'd probably say James Monroe. He was also an incredibly intelligent and incredibly engaged man who I admire greatly.
That's a good one. Okay. If you are elected and we're sitting here 4 years from now, what accomplishments would make you say that your term was a success?
Well, first off, that we've weathered the storm of this tax situation, that we come off not as a weaker county, but as a stronger county. 2, that we have more opportunity for our kids here. I told you a few months ago I was at church and we were saluting the seniors and 6 seniors came up and gave their speeches. And at the end of that, 5 out of the 6 said they had no plans to move back to St. Johns County because there weren't opportunities in their chosen fields of study. A lot of them were engineers. Those are easy opportunities we can bring here tomorrow. But also because there wasn't affordable housing here for them to live as well. So to have more opportunity for young people and working families would be number 2. And number 3, to have a commission that works for the will of the people, to find common ground, to break bread, to provide solutions rather than just pointing out problems. I think that would be something that I'd be extremely proud of. And 4, to be able to take the power away from the developers and give it back to the people by diversifying our tax base, diversifying our economy, and in the same time being able to preserve our natural spaces so that our kids and grandkids and their kids and grandkids can afford to live, work, and thrive in a beautiful county that we will not recognize, but just as good and even better than it is today.
In closing, finish this sentence. St. Johns County deserves
better. Short and simple.
Yeah. All right, Will. That's it. Thanks for letting us grill you.
I do like grilling. It's almost the 4th, too.
We are sitting here on July 3rd. You know, both of us, I think, are kind of filled with that spirit, that revolutionary, independent spirit. And we're sitting under the watchful eye of JC. So, I don't know. I'm kind of feeling it today. And so, you know, your conversation has actually given me a little hope. And
I'm so honored to
Yeah. So, anyway, this has been Christian with St. Augustine TV, and this has been Will McMullan. Where can people find out more information about you?
WMcMullan.com. That's WMCMULLAN.com.
And thank you for watching. Really appreciate the viewership. Give a like and subscribe. Hey, and comment below.